Hey YouTube, this is Elisa, and today we're going to learn about some basics in pet care for these guys, the bearded dragon. Stay tuned. Now, bearded dragons are known as one of the easiest beginner reptiles in the pet trade. I wouldn't say they're necessarily easy as any pet in general, but much easier than many other reptiles in the pet trade. Adults can live roughly average about 10 years in captivity. They can live up to about 15, but the average is about 10 years. So it is something that you should think about when getting this pet, that it's something that you're going to be taking care of for many years to come. Now, most of them can get anywhere from 1 to 2 feet long. Mostly the males are the ones that get larger, like this guy here. He's almost 2 years old, so he may still grow a little bit, but not much more. One of the basics is their enclosure. Babies are about that big, so they can do well in 10 gallons when they're just born, just hatched. But as they get bigger, they should go into a 20-gallon tank and then continue on even into 40 gallons or up to 75 gallons. I have him by himself. I don't recommend keeping multiple bearded dragons together. They are very territorial. They may fight, whether they're male, female, whatever it is. I wouldn't advise it. It's just not worth it. In addition to their tank size and having it grow along with them, another very important thing is lighting. You're gonna really want a heat lamp and a UV light. I definitely would not recommend things like heating rocks for them, and maybe even under tank heaters if they're going to be too close to the tank itself, the tank bottom itself, because these are things that can burn them potentially. You don't want to have to be going to the vet for burns on their belly. It's very difficult to treat and very hard on them and painful. So I would definitely recommend above heating from a lamp source, and only on one side of the tank so that they have a thermo gradient across the tank. So on one side of the tank, you're going to want the temperature to be roughly around 80 degrees and then slowly get hotter into the basking area, and the basking area should be roughly 95 degrees. Things to keep in the tank. In the tank, you're going to want things like branches and rocks and things like that. It's a really common misconception that you should keep them on sand. Sand is something that if they're chasing a cricket, they're chasing that worm, they're trying to get it, they go to grab it, they can actually ingest a good amount of sand with that prey, and it can cause impaction. This is something that can kill your lizard, multiple different lizard species, but it's a very common problem with bearded dragons and geckos and such. Don't give them sand. There's no reason for it. It's just for aesthetics. People think that they should have sand. All you need is either paper towels or newspaper, things like that that are very easy to clean when they soil them with their stool. You can just pick it up, crumple it, replace it, and that's it. I have personally chosen to use tile. Tile is another one of the things, if you want a little bit of aesthetics, you can still get really cool, rocky looking textured tiles and put that as their substrate across the bottom, but you can still clean it easily. I personally spot clean on the tile every time that I see them, and then about once a month I'll scrub down really well everything in the tank and make sure that everything is freshly cleaned. Water is something that they don't necessarily need all the time. They're from a very arid region and they're used to being in the heat and with very little amounts of water. However, it's better, in my opinion, to always have some source of water for them so they can have it whenever they think they need it, not when you think they need it. It's good to have a little dish, something shallow, just enough to have a little bit of water in it. If they want it, they can lap it up. If they don't want it, it'll stay there. Regardless, you should change it at least every other day, at the very least, if not every day. Another thing with water is gonna be when they need to shed or molt. They will do this every once in a while, and you will need to soak them. It's a good idea to soak them. It's the best way to keep them healthy and hydrated. A lot of times, most reptiles in general do actually absorb some amounts of fluid through their vent, their cloaca. So it's good to have them soak. It does help keep them hydrated, and it helps the skin, it helps everything, helps them shed. So personally, I think when they're young, you should probably do this at least once a week. As they get older, into full adults, you can technically drag this out to once a month to get a nice warm, shallow soak in a little tub or in a sink or something like that. It really depends on your individual dragon. They molt differently, different times. It depends on the humidity level in your house and where you're keeping them. It should not be too humid on a regular basis. So food. Food is something that's really important. As they go from hatchling, juvenile, to subadult to adult, they're going to continuously need different things to eat. So hatchlings and juveniles should be having 80 to 90% protein. They're going to need superworms, waxworms, dubia roaches, crickets, anything that is going to be those type of easily found insects at your local pet store. Those are the insects that you're going to want to be giving them regularly. You can find some of these freeze-dried. Some of these critters are a little bit pickier than others, but it is best that they're alive, ideally, because this is something that you're also going to want to dust with calcium powder so that they can grow and keep their calcium levels at the right amount as they're growing. When they get to adults, like Smog here, they should be having a lot more veggies and greens. So things like collard greens, kale, lettuces, different little blossoms, dandelions, all kinds of things like that. That's going to be ideal for them. Something that I know he likes a lot, and that's also good for them and helps them with bulking up and growing a little bit if you have a slightly skinnier adult, is squash. They like zucchini, they like yellow squash, anything like that. They love it. I shred it up for him, give him a bit, and he eats it up, gobbles it down. Other things are gonna be an occasional pinky mouse. You can give them a pinky once or twice a week, and they will happily take that down as their protein source, as well as continuing with crickets and superworms. Ideally, you're going to want them on mostly veggies and some protein as adults. Lastly, we'll get into common health problems. These guys are really cool critters, and they're super friendly, and they can make some really great pets. But as always, you should really ask around and see what veterinarians can take care of your reptiles. This guy did at one point have a little bit of a problem with an over liquidy stool, and I immediately took a sample over to the clinic where I work, and I checked it out, and it turned out that he had what's called coccidiosis. And coccidia is a type of protozoan little parasite in his intestines, and it was causing him to have diarrhea. And it is something that can commonly happen with these guys. They can get a lot of intestinal parasites. So just that alone is something simple that can be checked by your local vet that does work with these guys, and it's something that can be treated pretty easily. Within a week, we had it covered and he was completely back to normal. So that's one of the common things that can happen with these guys. Other things like metabolic bone disease can be prevented by using the right type of lighting and using calcium supplementation. But metabolic bone disease unfortunately can make them deformed. It can mess with their back, it can mess with their arms, it can actually have them fracture their bones more easily. It's something that you don't want to mess with. Another one of the problems they can get is impaction. Impaction, as I was saying before, is something that can happen if they don't have the right kind of substrate. You don't want to give them sand, you don't want to give them that corn cob stuff, anything that they can, any loose substrate that they can potentially ingest with their food, you don't want to give them. So that's some of the most common health problems with these guys, and that will conclude our basics to owning a bearded dragon. There's always more information out there. Please get it from proper sites and proper references, especially veterinary sites. A lot of pet stores give false information out there because they want to sell you more products. Okay, so just because things come in a kit and have bearded dragon slapped on it doesn't mean that's what you should buy. Always do your research before buying the pet. Don't just get it on impulse. Do the right research, get all the information right, and get a proper setup ahead of time. If you want to learn some other really fun facts, things like their third eye, their beard, their sticky tongue, and some other fun stuff like their femoral pores, then go ahead and check out the other video that we last did. So that's going to be it for today. As always, please like and subscribe below if you have any questions or comments on pet care for these guys. Please go ahead and also write those in the comment section below. See you next time.